Welcome to the Book Podcast. I'm Ian, and I have some books, and this is a podcast about those books. We are talking about these 4 books today, plus one that I don't have a copy of on hand right now. So I'm gonna go through these books, and we're gonna say what I like, what I don't like, and why. Because I want to get a good grade on this assignment. So, yeah. And I'll also explain why I don't have a copy of the 5th book, which is going to be last, by the way. So, the way this is going to work is I'm going to just... So, a very good way when you have a set of objects that you need to give your opinion on in a podcast, a very good way of you to rank them is through a tier list. That's what we're going to do. I'm going to put them on a tier list, and depending on how much time I have, I might even get a cool graphic up here, maybe, if I figure out how to do that. But anyways, so I'm going to go through the books, and we are going to review them and put them on the tier list. So, up first, I have The Selection by Kiera Cass. So, The Selection is a Wattpad fanfic that got a book deal, which is why it surprised me when it was actually good. So, well, you'll see. So, The Selection is a story about a girl named America Singer, right there, going through the process of becoming selected as the next queen of the country that it takes place in. We'll get to the world building in greater detail later, which you would think is going to be a very generic thing. It's going to be romance. You're going to see a theme here where I don't see my book tendencies and what I like and dislike in books. So, already that's kind of a turnoff for me. So, I read this one pretty early in the process of reading all 5 books. I read this one second. It took me about 2 weeks, maybe 3. Maybe I'd say at most a month to read this entire book. It went by very quickly. And it's surprised me, to say the least, because this book, well, first off, the world. You would think a world with a story about becoming the princess and queen of a country would take place in a fantasy setting, because that just makes sense. That's what you think of a queen, you think of fantasy. Which is why it surprised me when this was a dystopian story. It's a dystopia, which is really fun, because I actually do like that kind of stuff. It was kind of the first tip-off to me that this was more than what I judged it for. And they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I mean, when you see this cover, I'm gonna judge it. Anyways, so The Selection takes place in a future dystopia under a totalitarian monarchy, which I'm going to get into a little bit of a rant here. So, one thing that I find really interesting is in the book I'm reading right now outside of this, which is called The Storm Before the Storm by Mike Duncan. It's the rise and fall of the fall of the Roman Republic. Is just kind of about government and conflict and all that stuff, Most people would find it boring. I find it interesting. And one thing that Mike Duncan talks about, and I think he's quoting Polybius in this, who's a Greek philosopher, is how a government follows a cycle. So you have where any form of government will immediately go to its not immediately, but go to its worst incarnation. So a monarchy will become a tyranny, which then becomes an oligarchy, which then the oligarchs consolidate power. And then a democracy comes and overthrows it. Democracy turns to anarchy. And then a monarchy comes and reestablishes itself. And the cycle continues. In The Selection, it puts us a little bit further down that line, where most governments today are democratic. And so, where America, most all European countries, I think, other than, the city-states, I don't know I couldn't name every non-democratic would be easier, state in the world, but there's not a ton of them. They're greatly outnumbered by the democratic states. So, or democratic states. Looking at Russia. Anyways, so the selection immediately puts itself in kind of an interesting place because it is exactly what that cycle describes, which is there's a big part of it where the castle is often attacked by rebels, which is it shows that this is a monarchy that has been established and has moved towards tyranny, but is still fighting elements of the anarchy that preceded it. And there are references to the fall of the United States in the book. There is a bit where America finds an old U.S. history book, and her father tells her to put it away because it's like censored. Basically, it's censored media. They can't have it because, totalitarian state. So that kind of it plants seeds in there of this whole governmental thing, which I find very fun. When we get to the pros, you'll see that. So getting to the rant over, getting to the actual important world building details, because that was just something that I found fun, but to the important world building details. So the selection has a caste system. That's a big part of the it's pretty much the most important part of the plot other than the selection process itself, which we will get to. So in the society of Ilia, I don't know why I couldn't figure out the word for society. Ilia, which is the name of the country. In the society of Ilia, there are 8 castes. It's a very rigid caste. Well, not necessarily rigid. We'll get to that. Caste system of 1 through 8. It is, a caste system. 1 is the nobles, 8 is undesirables. Everything in between is all willy-nilly and stuff. So America Singer, our protagonist, which she's named after America, which I think is kind of funny, is a 5. She's a musician. Nominative determinism at its finest. So, the question is really which came first, the caste or the last name, because the way that you move caste, because you're born into your caste, but then the women of the society can move by marrying. So the woman assumes the man's caste. Which brings us our first conflict in the plot of the story, which is that America is, at the beginning of the story, in a secret relationship with a guy named Aspen Ledger, I believe. Hold on. Anyways, so Aspen is, I think Ledger, I could be wrong. Aspen is a 6, 7. Hang on, it's in here. 8. Is he an 8? What? I have that in my notes, but I don't believe that. I remember him being a 6. Here we go, Aspen. Alright, I found Aspen stuff. 6. Yeah, no, my notes are wrong. He's a 6. Hang on. The way that I don't have a script, I just kind of wrote down a bunch of notes. I'm improvising all of this, so my notes may be wrong. So if I feel that they're suspicious, I'll fix them. So America is in a secret, past curfew relationship with this guy named Aspen, who's a 6. And the reason that it's secret is because if she marries him, which she wants to at the beginning of the book, she will go down a caste. She goes from being a musician to a servant, a house servant, so like a maid, basically. Maid or like a cleaner or something. Same thing, but whatever. So it provides a really interesting thing of, does she want to pursue this person that she is supposedly in love with, even though it would put her in a lower economic standing? And that, I feel like, is a good, compelling initial conflict, especially because it brings us to our second conflict, which is whether to sign up for the selection process. The selection process is a big, the selection. That's the name of the book. So I was gonna have to talk about it eventually. So that's what we're gonna do now. The selection process is the process of the royal family of Ilia. You got king, queen, and their son. And so they take their son and they're okay, we need to find him a wife because he is a virgin. He is a virgin, and we need to make him not a virgin. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the lottery, and whoever gets picked gets put in a house with him, and then he whittles them down to find his wife, who will become the queen of Ilia. It's how it works. And so basically every girl in the nation, when it comes around, signs up because, why wouldn't they? Well, we'll see why they wouldn't, which is that America doesn't want to because she likes Aspen. So we got America, we got Aspen, and we got the selection. We got Maxon, if I can speak. So, and you'd think that's a pretty easy choice. It's America and this guy she has an actual emotional connection to, or some stuck-up rich guy. So you'd think that'd be a pretty easy decision, except something that's really compelling is Aspen wants her to join the selection because he loves her to the point where he wants her to have that chance, which is really fun, and I like that dichotomy. So, going down the plot of the book, America signs up for the selection, thinking, okay, I'm a 5, no way I'm getting in, just to make Aspen happy, right? So then she signs up, she goes to the thing, she signs up, and then, plot twist, I know, crazy, no one saw it coming, she gets picked. No one saw it coming in a book called The Selection, where she's our protagonist. Anyways, I mean, it wasn't really a question, but whatever. I'm breaking my own sarcasm right now. So, America is picked, and Aspen is happy for her, because by joining the selection, you go from being whatever you are to a 2, which is the second highest from the actual royal family. So, we get America becoming a 2, and all she has to do is fill out this paperwork. She doesn't want to, because she still loves Aspen. But Aspen breaks up with her, because he's like, I want a better life for you. I feel like I can't provide for you. You're, if anything, providing for me, because you're of a higher economic standing than me. So, go do this. I'm done. Which I think shows good character there. So, America joins the selection, and she doesn't really want to be there, because she just got broken up with, sad, listening to My Chemical Romance or whatever it would be in this timeline. I don't know. So, America goes to the selection process. She goes to the castle. And she sorry. So she meets all the other girls. She is of the lowest caste there. Oh, I should grab the water. Hang on one moment. Water. Anyways, continuing. What was I talking about? The selection process. So, America goes to the castle, and she is the lowest caste there, because it's random, but it's probably not. So, what is she to do? She doesn't want to be there, and she's got all the spotlight on her, because the whole thing, by the way, since it's in the future, is televised. So she doesn't want to be in the spotlight. Unfortunately, based on her condition, she is in the spotlight, because she's like the interesting one. And she also immediately becomes a fan favorite, because the way that social structures work, I'll probably put a graphic up here, they're a pyramid. So there's more people on the bottom that can relate to her than the supermodels up there will get to her. So speaking of supermodels, I said we'll get to her. We're getting to her now. I'm being texted. Oh, okay. So, Celeste. Not a good character. I mean, good character, well written, bad person. She's a 2, I believe. Okay, whatever. So Celeste is the main antagonist in this situation. Like, antagonist. She's just competition. She's kind of the big bossy, like, the one that you would expect to win, or the one she expects herself to win. Now, I'm just gonna get to a cliffhanger because I said I'd be spoiling all these books if I didn't, because I'm forgetting. I may have said that on a different take. I'm spoiling all of the books in this. This book ends on a cliffhanger because we'll get to what the cliffhanger is, because there is a whole series of books. There is, if you look at the back, there's a bunch of them. Oh my god, stop texting me. Shut up. Anyways, so there's a whole series of books. But so what happens is that the 35 main people, and it gets whittled down to, I believe, 6. I read this one a long time ago, and I haven't read the entire thing in detail since then. Like, I didn't reread the whole book. I read parts, but I didn't reread the whole thing. So, America, why is she in the 6? She could just sabotage her way out. Because herein lies actually the main conflict of the story. That isn't the love triangle, but we'll get back to that. I established that before, but we'll get to it. Which is that for every round or whatever, however long they spend in the castle, their family gets money. Now, as someone from a lower caste whose family may not have a ton of money, she could certainly use that. So what is she to do? She strikes up a deal with the guy she's supposed to be seducing. Pretty boss move, not gonna lie. I respect her for that. Basically, she says, I don't really love you, but I need this for my family. Can you keep me until the second one? Or until the last one, so there's 2, and then eliminate me then. Because I don't want to do this. And he agrees. And so that's what most of the conflict in the story is balancing keeping up this facade of being of wanting to do it, so that the whole nation thinks, oh yeah, no, she still wants to do it, and she's not going to get sent home by Maxon. And they're not going to think, oh, this whole thing's a sham. But at the same time, she's balancing, she doesn't want to go so far into this facade, that she actually starts to stray from the main purpose of it, which was not falling in love with Maxon. Hint, hint, she fails at that. That doesn't work. So I didn't really like that part of the book, honestly. I think we'll get back. We'll get to my dislikes in a second. I got a couple more things to talk about. So one, which is the love triangle. I said we'd come back to that, and we are, because Aspen, the crazy son of a gun that he is, after breaking up with her and breaking her heart, decides to get a job in the palace as a guard. And so then they start having a relationship again, and it's really weird. And because I feel like, and this is, alright, I'm going to start talking about my pros and cons. Pros. World building is amazing. Okay, well, not amazing, but it's very good. Maybe not the best. Not the best in this. But it's very good. I'd say it's probably the second best. And I feel like I really like that moral struggle that America has in this book. My cons are the romance bits and just kind of the pacing of it. Because I feel like a lot of it is spent on like it's a lot of it spent on the selection bits, which I get is like the point of the book, but I feel like I would have preferred if the selection was used less as a plot point and more as a set piece. Because I feel like there's a lot of interesting things they could have done with this story that they've established if it was less focused on the selection being the main event and more being something that's going on in the background that they're still dealing with, but it's more of a like, oh, this is also happening, but there's stuff going on in between. But so overall, I would give The Selection by Kiera Cass a rating of A for Aspen. You done messed up. Don't get a job in the palace. It's not gonna work. It worked. Oh God. Okay. Anyways, book number 2, Once We Were Brothers, by Ronald H. Balson. So, Once We Were Brothers is a book about revenge, the American legal system, and tasting the power of the German high command. If you read the book, you'll get that joke. So, this book is about immediately I'm going to get something I liked about this book, which is that I liked how it was written in the structure of it. Because unlike a normal book where it's just written as from the perspective of one character the entire time, it flips between the perspective of Catherine, who is a lawyer in Chicago, and Ben Solomon. But not Ben Solomon at the same time as Catherine, but Ben Solomon in World War II. Because Ben Solomon is a Jewish Holocaust survivor from Poland. So, and the book, hence, is Once We Were Brothers. It's the title tells you, once I tell you what it means, it makes sense. It is about Ben having a not blood brother, but a blood of the covenant runs thicker than the water of the womb. That's the full quote. Not blood runs thicker than water. It's blood of the covenant, water of the womb. So it's kind of got flipped by people flipping it, but whatever. So he's got this. So his family takes in this guy named Otto Piatek, who is a kind of the antithesis of what you'd think they would be, because it's this very Jewish family in Poland in the 1930s and 40s. And we've taken Otto Piatek, who is full-on Aryan. I'm gonna be using very crude terms, but that's the terms the book uses because it's about World War II and the Nazis. So, oh yeah, by the way, you can see it right there. There's a swastika because it's a Nazi book. Not a book. It's a book with Nazis in it, and it talks about Nazis and the horrors of the Nazis. So it does get quite graphic, I will say, which, maybe not for everyone, but I didn't. Encoding overloaded. Please consider turning down video settings. I don't care. We're doing fine. All right. So, this book. Back to that. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties. So, Once We Were Brothers, it alternates between the perspective of Catherine, a lawyer, and Ben, a Jewish man who is living in Chicago in the present day. And the parts where it's from Ben's perspective are flashbacks being told. They're retellings by Ben to Catherine. Because the main the overarching plot of the book, which is more of a set piece, but it is established at the beginning and is resolved in the end, so it is a plot, is that Ben believes that Elliot Rosenzweig, a rich Chicago philanthropist, is actually his brother who betrayed him, Otto Piatek, who stole all his family's riches, and emigrated to Chicago, after committing various war crimes in Poland, because Otto Piatek went on to become a commanding officer in the Nazis, known as the Butcher of Zamask. Not the kind of guy you would think who was raised by a Polish Jewish family in Zamask. You wouldn't think that. So everyone thinks that he is crazy. Unfortunately for them, he is correct. So, the book alternates. Well, the overarching plot is Ben suing Elliot, Otto, with Catherine representing him, because she's the only lawyer willing to take his case. So, it alternates between Chicago, present day, and Catherine gathering Ben's testimony, which is told from Ben's perspective, but if I can find it, it is all in quotes, because it's just all dialogue. And occasionally Catherine butts in and, like, breaks the fourth wall breaks a meta fourth wall. So she doesn't break the fourth wall, but she breaks a fourth wall in the book, which I think is, like, one of my big pros for this book is it is very well written, and I think that I think it's very good. I think this book is very good on the writing aspect. Plot-wise, I don't think it's the strongest. Just because of, like, all the Germany bits, all the bits where you're in Poland with the Nazis, I think are amazing. It's the present day bits that are a bit weaker, in my opinion. So, what happens is that so I'm going to go over the plot of the Germany bits, and then I'll get to the plot of the Chicago bits. So, Germany, Chicago, if I'm pointing in this direction, it's Germany. Pointing in this direction, it's Chicago. So, in Germany, Poland, whatever, 1940 versus 20XX. We have Ben in his family home with his, family, obviously. And they have this boy, Otto Piatek, dropped off as a doorstep by his parents, and are basically like, we don't want this kid anymore, take care of him. And they're like, okay. So they take care of him. They get him, and they raise him. He's very good friends with Ben and all their friends. He's very much in the community, even though he's not really a member of the community, because he's not Jewish, and it's a Jewish community. But he's raised there. They're all basically his family. So then the Holocaust starts, because this is 1930s Germany. So Germany invades Poland. It's not good. They overrun the town, but nothing really happens yet. So, but then they start cracking down on the Jewish communities in other cities around Zamask, which is where the most of the beginning of the story takes place. So, it's the meta story, but also the plot of the book. There's a lot of very layering, which is hard to explain. It's better if you just read it. It's not really hard to explain. I'm just having trouble articulating it for some reason. Anyways, so they decide that Otto should enlist in the Nazis in order to be a spokesperson for the people of Zamask, which seems like a good idea. He has ties with them, so he's not gonna mistreat them or anything, or butcher them. So he goes and he enlists in the German ranks and starts kind of being a liaison for them. And eventually, Ben's father also gets appointed as the leader of the Judenrat, which is the Jewish government that appeals to the Third Reich for the treatment of the Jewish population in Zamask. So that's where we are. And then, so Ben's out and about doing his merry old time. He's still a child at this point, by the way. He's like a teenager. So he's living in this town, just kind of off doing his thing, going to high school, I think, still at this point. And then all of the Jewish people are relocated from their homes to slums, uh, ghettos. Ghetto. Okay, yeah. They moved to ghettos, which are just these basically big tenement complexes. So, seeing that things are starting to go pretty bad in there in Samask because things continue to deteriorate. I'm not going to describe the whole, like, all the events of it, but there is the situation deteriorates quite a bit. So Ben, his sister Hannah, and Becca, who's his like girlfriend. Is Becca the girlfriend or is Becca the wife? Hold on. Or not wife, sister. I think Becca's the sister. Hannah and Becca. So, Hannah, and Becca go to... One of them's a sister, one of them's his girlfriend. It's escaping me which one is which. It's probably in my notes somewhere. Yeah. So, I can find it somewhere. Hannah's the girlfriend. Okay, no. Becca's the sister, Hannah's the girlfriend. So, his girlfriend, and his sister go to this cabin in the woods where their uncle lived. And then, it was a family member, I think it was uncle. Some kind of uncle. May have been great uncle. I don't know. So they go to this cabin in the woods to escape because things aren't going too good. So they're in this cabin, and so they're cut off completely from their parents. The parents are like, go, we'll catch up with you eventually. And they're there for like a month or something. They're there for a really long time, and their parents just don't show up. So they're like, oh no, things went down. So Ben goes, okay, I'm gonna go out. So, big plot point. All of his family's valuables are buried at this farm. They're buried at a farm. So, he goes there, secures, makes sure all the valuables are good. So he goes. He goes in. They're all taken care of. He talks to Otto. At this point, a bunch of stuff has happened. Otto has been corrupted by power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's the whole bit with absolute power. He gains rank in the Nazi rank, and then he becomes more and more corrupt. So lots of stuff happens, and basically, he tells him to go pound sand. Basically, he's like, "I'll help you, but I really don't want to." So while he's doing this, Becca and Hannah get captured. Not fun. Really not fun. So Becca specifically is taken. So Hannah manages to get out, which is good. Very, very nice. Very, very nice. Very nice. Becca doesn't, because Becca gets sent to this hotel, and I'm going to talk about the hotel. It's not super important, but it's not super important to the plot, but I'm going to talk about it, because I think it was my favorite part of the book just because of how ridiculous it was. So, basically, there was a big resort hotel that the Germans had for their officers to go to release all their pent-up energy by... I would put it nicely, but there isn't a way to put it nicely. I'm really going to try, though. That bit with I said at the intro of "come taste the power of the German high command," let's just say that was said to his sister by a German officer while they were both naked. And she was not having it as much as he was. We'll just say that. So Becca jumps out of a window Yeah. So Becca jumps out of a window and dies. So she's just dead. And so that happened. And so Ben goes to this hotel resort no time place and is like in Otto's uniform because he managed to get one of his uniforms and was like, I'm going to get my sister. So he goes, gets and is like, I'm a fanatical Nazi. I'm not, but he doesn't tell them that. So also I just realized that clip is gonna be I'm gonna have that audio file on my computer. So yeah. Anyways, Ben gets in. He's like, I'm a Nazi and I would like to be with one of these captured women. So he goes in, doesn't see his sister. He finds one of these girls and is like, okay, come with me. And she's not having a good time. And he talks to her. He's like, I'm just like you. I'm a Jewish dude, and I just don't. And I'm gonna help you get out of here if you tell me what happened to my sister. And she's like, your sister jumped out of a window. So obviously he's not super happy with that. So he goes to the guy who was with her and kills him. He takes his knife and kills him very graphically, and it was very, very satisfying to me. It was satisfying to just the retribution. Anyways, so he manages to get this guy. So he gets out with this other girl, and they go, and she ends up staying with Elisbieta, or however you pronounce it, who is Otto's girlfriend or wife or whatever. So Otto, so a bunch of stuff happens. Bunch of stuff goes down. And what ends up happening is Ben and his family, including his sister, are, not sister, wife, I think at this point they're married, Hannah, are all end up at this church. And Ben is working as a maintenance guy there. Because the church guy, because this is a Catholic church, is taking people refuge and is helping people get out of the country by forging passports. His father is the one forging the passports. So this place is pretty big military target, but they're not going to attack it because it's a church. So, except they do attack it at the end, right at the end of the story, at the end of his testimony. What happens? So you got all these people at the church. So you got Ben's whole family, including his wife, who dies of scarlet fever, which is, so already Ben's not having a good day. Well, I don't think she died of scarlet fever in the church, but I think she did actually. Yeah, she dies of scarlet fever at some point. Whatever, she has scarlet fever, so Ben's not having a good time right now. And then a bunch of trucks pull up with swastikas on the side of them, and he's like, uh-oh, that's not good. And then out comes Otto in his full uniform with all of his cronies along with him. And he's like, oh no, this really isn't good. They kick in the door, and they're like, where is the guy making the passports? So Ben and his father come out, and he's like, you. So he shoots his father and sends the rest of them to a concentration camp. And this is where my memory gets fuzzy about whether Hannah died before or after this happened, because I can very much see it happening before, but also it might have happened in the concentration camp. Whatever. They go to a concentration camp, and then the war ends, and they're done. So Ben gets out. He moves to Chicago. Otto, being a war criminal, you'd think, gets convicted at Nuremberg and is whatever happens. He killed a lot of Jewish people because he was kind of orchestrating the whole thing. So you'd think he'd be tried, but no. He went to Argentina and then to Chicago and changed his name to Elliot Rosenzweig. And his wife, Elisbieta, changed her name to Elizabeth Rosenzweig. You'd think you'd change your name a little more than that. We'll get back to that. So now the Chicago plotline. Basically, Catherine is a lawyer. She recently left the law firm she was working at because she didn't like how it was being run. So she left, and she decides to take Ben's case because he's like a crazy old man, and she's like, okay, whatever. Son, I gotta take him or he's gonna get the public defender, and no one wants the public defender. So she takes his case and starts getting the testimony, and she starts getting really invested in it. And she gets her friend, they were roommates, Liam Taggart, he was a private investigator, to start investigating on her behalf, start investigating Elliot, and be like, Elliot, to be like, oh yeah, this is, is he actually who he says he is? He's not. So he takes him, and he kisses him, and is like, yeah. There's a little bit, he says, there's a little bit, but not enough to convict a man of being a Nazi. So eventually, through a long series of events, Elliot's lawyers contact Ben. It's like, we want a meeting. Your lawyers can't be there. But our lawyers aren't going to be there. It's just going to be you and Elliot. So him and Elliot are in the same room. Now, at this point, I wouldn't trust this. Because just my intuition, someone's getting shot in this room. Someone's getting shot or stabbed or choked out. And I'm not sure whether I'm not sure who it's going to be, but I have a feeling this could only end violently. It doesn't end violently because Elliot has a deal for Ben, but he will pay him handsomely, as in, oh yeah, I never actually mentioned what the conflict was. Basically, at one point, all the valuables that were stored in the farm, I kind of forgot to mention this, all the valuables that were stored in the farm, were stolen, and Ben believes them to have been stolen by Otto or Elliot. So Elliot tells Ben that he isn't Otto, but he is willing to sweep this whole thing under the rug. He's saying, sweep this whole thing under the rug. I will pay you the total sum of all of the money that you say was stolen because I am really rich. You may wonder how he's so rich, considering he just immigrated to the United States. We'll get to that. So, he's also claiming to be a Holocaust survivor at this point. So, what happens is Ben says, screw you, and, does a motion that I'm not going to do. Well, he doesn't actually do it, but I'm not going to do it on camera, but he metaphorically just goes like that, but with some extra fingers, and with 2 extra fingers, 1 on each hand, and then leaves and says, no, screw you, I'm gonna continue with my prosecution. So, and the prosecution isn't going super well because they don't have a ton of evidence, because all they really have is the testimony. Until his wife they subpoena his wife and basically say, we think, or they say that we know that you are Elżbieta Piatek, and you will be deported and convicted. You'll be deported to Argentina if you don't testify, or you will be deported. And so she's like, oh no, what can I do to stop this? And so she gets a meeting with Catherine, because Catherine's going to subpoena them. I just said them. But Catherine says, okay, if you testify against your husband and say, yes, we are the Piateks, then you will have immunity and will not be deported. So she testifies against her husband, and then Elliot is convicted, and all is well. Ben dies in the hospital, which is kind of sad, but you know what? Whatever. And so what I really liked the Germany bits. The Germany bits were incredibly well written, very emotional, and just very, very fun. Not fun, but they were interesting to read. And I said I'd say how long each book took me. This one took me about 2 months, maybe. But to be fair, I read about a quarter of it on a combined 18-hour bus ride round trip to Ohio. So probably took me a little longer, but if you were to even it out. But so that part I was really invested in. The dislikes, I didn't really like the Chicago bits. The Chicago bits were very bland. And at this point, I've been talking about this book for 30 minutes because it's very complicated. But overall, I would say for a rank, B tier. For Ben, finally getting his revenge and then immediately dying. Next book. Up next, we have Words on Bathroom Walls. Oh boy, this is certainly a book. So, Words on Bathroom Walls is a book about a guy named Adam. Adam's whole character is that he has schizophrenia. That's his entire thing. This is his bit. It's his defining trait. And the book, and a lot of these are actually written very interestingly, because this book is written as a series of journal entries from a therapist, because Adam is part of an experimental drug trial for a drug called Tosoprex, which is a fictional drug that's supposed to be a treatment for schizophrenia. Such a drug does not exist in the real world, but for the plot, I'll let you have it. So, basically, the plot, Adam has schizophrenia. He gets on this drug, and he starts going to a new school so that no one knows that he has schizophrenia. It is telling me that the encoding is overloaded again. I say screw you. So, hold on. Like a pressure in my ear. Whatever. I'm already out of water. Whatever. I think I have my big water bottle out there. Hold on. Big honkin' water bottle. What? Huh? Oh, okay. They're like half folded. Okay. So, the reason that it was written as a series of journal entries, is because Adam is uncomfortable talking to a therapist that he has to see as part of the trial, because they want to know if it's affecting his mental state, because it's a mental disorder. He doesn't want to talk to the therapist, so he tells it through journal entries, which is a fun way to write a book. I will say, I do kind of like the concept of that. So, the plot follows Adam getting into this new school and just kind of making friends. So he is friends with this guy named Dwight, who he ends up playing tennis with. He's friends with him. There's also a guy named Ian, who is kind of not a cool guy. I don't know. I don't think the name has anything to do with that. I think he's just, whatever. But so Ian is not a super cool guy in this book. I'm gonna specify every time I say that, because I feel like if I say it and I don't specify, it's bad luck. So, anyways. There's gonna be like a compilation at the end of this of like every time I've taken a sip of my water. But yeah. So Adam starts off at this new school, which is St. Catherine's. It's a Catholic school, which I feel like if you have schizophrenia, probably isn't the best school to go to, just because a lot, like historically, maybe not now, obviously, but historically, a lot of times people with mental disorders were considered to be possessed by the devil. So I feel like going to a Catholic school may not be the best choice, especially considering some of the stuff that they get down to later on. So I'm going to get to some of the schizophrenic hallucinations, delusions, all that stuff, because those are kind of fun. So you got So he's got one named Rebecca. There's like in half these books, all the characters have the same name because in one of the other books there's another guy named Ben. There's like they all have the same names. But so Adam has a character named Rebecca. A delusion named Rebecca, who's a very tall, mute woman who just kind of hangs around and does things. She's nice. There's also a really like tall, lanky guy and a really fat guy short and fat guy who I always envisioned as being like pencil drawn. I don't know. I just like kind of like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, like art style, but like just like on a piece of paper taped to the like in space. I don't know. That's just kind of how I visioned them. And then there's a group of mobsters that are just kind of come in and cause havoc. And there's probably a bunch of others, but those are the ones I have down in my notes. So Adam has so at one point Adam is in the school gym with just after in the school gym having just walking around when Rebecca just takes off running. So he decides, I'm going to follow her. She's not real. So a big part of this is just how does she know about this? Because he goes and there's a girl who he knows who's in a couple of his classes named Maya who is drowning in the school pool. So he jumps in and saves her. Which, okay, sure. I don't know the justification for how Rebecca knew that she was there, but whatever. So since he saved her, they begin dating, which not what, whatever. They do other stuff. They go play. They date. They do stuff. And then there's the big part, which I feel like whenever anyone mentions this book, I have to talk about because it's the part that stuck out to me the most. And like, I'll say, the part that stuck out to me the most was the moral struggle that America went through. Once We Were Brothers, it was the very emotional bits in Germany. This one, it's that Adam lost his virginity while dressed as Jesus. And I think that's all I need to say. So, what I liked about this book is that it was I liked the way that it was presented and the justification for that presentation. But what I didn't really like about the book was the romance bits between Adam and Maya. They felt very forced and not very natural, as you would guess if they feel forced. And also, there was a bit in the second act, because in the first act of the book is the dose of the drug being gradually increased and him showing signs of getting better. But then in the middle of the book, he's taken off the drugs, and his condition deteriorates. And I felt like that wasn't justified. I didn't really feel like there was any reason for them to do that. There probably was, but I didn't find that it got across very well. And yeah, so not my favorite book. So I gave it, for a score, I'm gonna give it a D. For Adam's D, because it shows up in this book way too many times. All right. So now we have wonderful book 10. It's a book. It's a YA romance novel, a horror story, and a detective story wrapped up and stacked on top of each other in a trench coat. So for this one, I forgot to combine. I have separate notes here on my phone that I forgot to combine onto the rest of the document. So if you see me looking down, that's why. Because I wrote these notes at a completely different time than the rest of them. So, yeah. I gotta find them. Hold on. Alright. So, we're just gonna go straight into this. So, our main character, her name's Meg. She is an author. Like amateur author. She's a nerd. She writes. She's not the kind of person to like go to parties and stuff. Which she does go to a party. That is kind of like the whole plot of the book. So the plot of the book follows 10 teenagers on an island going to a party. So the party takes place on this place called Henry Island, which is an island, as the name would suggest, in this place called White Rock House. So there are 10 teenagers there. No adults, just kids. There is Meg and Minnie. You got TJ, who both Meg and Minnie have a crush on. Meg and Minnie are best friends. Minnie doesn't know that Meg also has a crush on TJ. It's drama. Because Minnie has bipolar and is known to get kinda crazy. So, you got them. And then you got... Hold on, where's my list? I have a list somewhere. Okay, so you got Ben. This is the other Ben I mentioned. Actually, there's another Ben. Whatever. You got Lori. You got Vivian. You got Kenny. You got Nathan. You got Gunnar. You got Kumiko. You got TJ. You got Minnie. And you got Meg. So, notably, the owner of the house, the daughter of the owner of the house, the one who was sent out all the invites, is not there. She never shows up. So, basically, all these kids are there doing stuff, and so they found this DVD and they play it. Big creepy vibes. It says basically, y'all done messed up and you're gonna pay for what you did. No one knows what they did. They don't know who it's meant for. They're just like, that was weird. Let's have food. And then they all start dying. So I have my list of how they died. So you have, and pardon my inflection here, don't worry about it. Ben has an allergic reaction to nuts in a water bottle. And so you got Lori. She hangs herself from the chandelier in the tower of the house because it's a big fancy house. Vivian falls accidentally on a piece of driftwood on the beach because it's a big storm, and she slips and falls on the driftwood because rain and stuff. Kenny just kind of like dies. He just kind of gets killed. No air quotes there. He just kind of gets killed. Nathan gets shot she gets shot with an arrow. Gunnar gets a shot with a gun. He just kind of gets shot in general. Kumiko, while trying to escape the house, got shocked by a door handle. And Ben burns alive on a boat. That's right, he dies twice because he's awesome. Actually, he dies 3 times. So basically, the plot of the book, and this is kind of convoluted, is you've got so you got this girl. Few weeks ago, before the party, she kills herself. Like, not kills herself, she kills herself. She has this diary that says basically that talks about how basically she's sad because she can't get with a guy, and she just calls him the guy in the story. And she's like, oh, he's so enamored with this other girl, and I'm so sad, boo-hoo, and then she kills herself. I don't know. So this takes place way before. And so, hang on. So, Meg finds this book in her room at the house, this diary, which she thinks is her diary, because she also keeps a meticulous diary because she's quirky and not like other girls. So she finds this and is like, this is crazy. This is kind of wacky. And she realizes, oh, this is the diary of the girl who killed herself. So Ben is not actually Ben, because a few because again, a few weeks prior, there was a badly burned and disfigured body found in a locker at a school. Notably, the school that the girl who killed herself attended, I believe. Whatever. So, and everyone's like, wow, that's crazy. We don't know who this person is. As it turns out, it's Ben. Not Ben, but Ben. Because Ben is actually the girl who killed herself's brother. It's crazy. I just heard something move in the background. I don't know what it is. I think there are birds in my attic. I don't know. There was a guy who came today and was like, yeah, there's birds in your attic. But I think he got rid of them, but I don't think he did. I don't know. Anyways, so, also, the girl who died, her name is Claire Hicks. That's the girl who killed herself. And the guy, and Ben is actually Tom Hicks, her brother. And he's like, I'm going to get a revenge. So he pretends to get an allergic reaction to the nuts. And is like, oh, I'm so dead. And then when everyone's gone, it's like, oh no, he's dead. He escapes and he kills them. He pushes Vivian on the driftwood, and he kind of just kills everyone else. So a bunch of stuff happens, and then eventually you get Meg, Minnie, and Tom. I'm gonna call him Tom from this point, on a boat. And so the boat is on fire, and so Minnie and Meg, so Minnie and Meg are on the boat, and Minnie comes up to Meg and is like, I know who the killer is. And then she's gonna say Ben, and then she gets shot in the throat with an arrow, which is the most metal thing ever, but whatever. And then, so there's big fight on the boat. It gets on fire, and then Tom dies. He gets burned on the boat. So, yeah. TJ gets shot in the shoulder by, I think it was Meg. But he survives, which is impressive. He's like a built jock kind of guy. And he just lives, and he's all fine. And so him and Meg survive, and that's it. They're just kind of that's it. So what I liked about the book was how it was written, because all these books are very well written, like mechanics wise, and very, like, the atmosphere is very well done, but it's not very, a lot of them is where the plot that struggles. So with this one, the plot twist I did like, because it wasn't like super obvious, where I was like, oh yeah, that guy's gonna be the killer. I actually didn't see it coming. So I heard a noise over there, but so I actually didn't see the plot twist coming, it was fun. I liked it. I didn't like how the teen romance elements of the love triangle between Minnie and TJ and Meg it was very overbearing, I found, over the book. I get that was a big thing, because it was like, oh, any of them could be the killer, because any of them they all have reason to hate each other. But I felt like it was very overbearing, and kind of just, I felt like it was very, I didn't like it. Now, that's coming from me. If you read this book, you may enjoy it. Didn't super enjoy it. That element. And also, I didn't like how Meg and TJ make it out pretty much unscathed. Like, sure, TJ got shot, but at the end, he didn't seem like he got shot. He just seemed fine. So, I don't know. Didn't really strike me as that good. So, as my score, I give this book a C, because the sea surrounds islands. Okay, so now, have I done? Talked about that one. Yeah, alright. So we're on the one that I don't have a physical copy of. So this one is the last one that I haven't talked about. So this one is the fifth wave. We all know where this one's going. I've talked about this one at length before, and I'm going to again. So I'm not gonna make you wait. It's an S tier book for Spaceship. So basically, the fifth wave is a post-apocalypse, kind of post-apocalypse, where it's kind of like a mid-apocalypse. It's the apocalypse happens during it, and so the fifth wave generally follows Cassie Sullivan, who's a teenager from Earth. She is an Earthling because it's a book about aliens. Where she was just kind of living her best life, doing normal teenager things, having a crush on this guy named Ben Parrish, who we will get to. And she was just vibing with her family. And then the mothership appeared. It was all fine till all the nations lived in harmony till the big alien spaceship nation attacked. So basically, just this big mothership appeared, and everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." And my one gripe with this book, single issue with the book, is that they didn't just nuke the mothership, because that would have just fixed it. They would have just won, and spoilers, not just for the book that I've talked about in this entire thing, and I know I've said spoilers throughout this whole thing, but also spoilers for the rest of the Fifth Wave series, because I give this an S tier because the reason I don't have the physical copy is because I read the second and third book also, so I returned the first book. So not necessarily. It's not like I don't have it because I just didn't have it. It's because I returned it, and because I have the third book right now. Anyways, so basically, big mothership appears. Everyone's like, okay, it's just kind of there. We're going to still go about living our normal lives. Until a big EMP pulse goes out and shuts down all the power. Like, literally everything. Not just power, but also, like, all the planes and stuff. Literally any sort of technology gone like that. So they go, okay, that's not good. But we're still fine. I mean, we survive without that. Then a massive tsunami hits all the coastal cities, killing a lot of people. Like, sure, some people died who were, like, in airplanes and stuff when the EMP hit, but then, like, massive, like, 200-foot waves hitting the coastline. Most people live on the coastline, so a lot of people died. So the book is called The Fifth Wave because the apocalypse comes in. Get this. 5 waves. So the first one is the EMP. Second one is the wave. Third one is my personal favorite, plague. So basically, it's a custom virus that causes blood to come out of all of your holes. All of them. And by all of them, I mean like your ears and your eyes and your nose and all. I'm sure other ones, but it says your ears and your eyes and your nose and all that. It specifies the eyes, but I'm assuming it's all of the holes. So basically, a lot of people die from that. Like 99% of the population dies is dead at this point, including Cassie's mom. But her brother and her father are still fine. They're great. So, well, not great, but they're going. So they should turn up at this camp, this place, this survivor camp, which is nicknamed Camp Ash Pit, for the pit full of ash. What is the ash from? Ash from, you may ask? Bodies. That's where they burn the bodies. They got the body pit. The burned body pit, which is an ash pit. So they call it Camp Ash Pit because Camp Body Pit Camp Burned Body Pit doesn't really have quite a ring to it. So they do that. And then a bunch of school buses come around and we're like, okay, we're going to go collect the children and take them to a military base. We'll come and get the adults later. So they corral all the children onto the buses. OBS is yelling at me again. So, whatever. They corral all the children onto these school buses and drive them away. All the military people stay behind. And so Cassie watches her father is negotiating with the commander of the military, whose name is Commander Vosh. We'll get back to him. So Commander Vosh is talking to her father. And so she's just kind of watching. So she watches as he's talking to her father. And then he pulls a gun out and shoots her father in the head. He just kind of shoots him. And then, so she's like, obviously distraught at this. And then one of the soldiers brings out a bomb and just kind of sets it on the ground. It's like, go bomb. And so Cassie runs away she has a gun at this point. And so big boom, everyone at the camp is dead. Except for her. She's fine. She escapes. She manages to go out and live in the wilderness on her own. Until the fourth wave comes about. It's a fun wave. It's the silencers. So you may be wondering, Ian, what is a silencer? Well, a silencer is a human who has an alien mind in them. I am spoiling all 3 books, so I'm going to tell you the truth, not the ruses that it gives you, because this book has a lot of lies in it. It lies to you about the world, which I think is very fun. It's very well layered. It's very well written. I mean, that's given. But so basically, the silencers are people programmed to think that they are aliens. They aren't actually aliens, but they think that they are. They know of the aliens, they just don't. So they're hunting down the humans, even though they're also humans. It's, cruel, but it's kind of funny because, whatever. So the silencers are dispatched to kill all the remaining humans, except for the children, which are gathered up. We'll get back to the children. So Cassie is shot in the leg by a silencer and hides under a car. And then she passes out, all that stuff. She is rescued by that silencer because that silencer discovers this crazy human emotion called love. And now you may be wondering, oh, you don't like love, as has been established by all 4 other books. So why should this one be any different? Because this one is good. It's well written, and I like the way that the romance is written in this book because it's not overbearing. It's there, though, which I feel like is really important in a story about the human condition and in the face, especially, of when you don't know who is a human and who isn't. Because I feel like the thing that separates humans from things that aren't human is love. Well, maybe not. I think just that's a big part of being human. It's a symptom of being human. Shine down. Anyways, so she gets rescued by the silencer and nursed back to health. We'll get back to her because we got to go over to Ben Parrish, who's the one she had a crush on earlier. I mentioned that, remember? And I said how we were going to come back to it. We're coming back to it. So, Ben Parrish, and if I didn't say that and I'm misremembering, I did say it, and you're just crazy. Gaslighting isn't real. You're just crazy, too. Anyways, important bit. So he is living at a camp outside of a military base. Whole bunch of people surviving outside. They get attacked by someone. They think it's the aliens. It's not. It's the military. So the military attacks them, and he gets taken inside because he is a carrier of the Red Death, the plague where the blood comes out your eyes. And they're like, okay, we're just going to keep you in the patient's ward and wait until you die because there's no cure. He doesn't die, which is crazy. So the commander comes in, the same commander from before that shot Cassie's father, and is like, hey, you're crazy. I'm putting you in the military now, and your name's Zombie because you're supposed to die, but you didn't. So everyone starts calling him Zombie. So he is trained to become a soldier, to fight the aliens. We'll get back to that. I am going to keep the wool over your eyes a little bit with this one. Don't worry. Well, I'll tell you eventually. So he is trained alongside Squad 53, which is Dumbo, Flintstone, Tank, Ringer, eventually, Nugget, and Pound Cake, and himself. So it's the 7 of them, and they're all training, and they're doing great. Ringer and Nugget come on later. So it's just them, the 7 I mentioned before, sans those 2. So they come in. They're not doing so hot in the training because they're all, note, all of the people who are training are children. They're all like under 15. They're child soldiers because they're desperate. Well, desperate. So they're training. They're not doing so hot. Then Ringer shows up. Ringer is crazy. She's a chess prodigy who learns, is a very good shot because they were struggling with shooting. So they bring her on and they pretty much immediately pass the thing and graduate. There's also Nugget, which Nugget is really funny. I will tell you who Nugget is. He is Cassie's brother who was taken on the buses, is in the same squad as the person she had a crush on in high school. Fun coincidence. It does come back later. So, yeah. Cassie is being nursed back to health while they're doing this. So they're doing this, they graduate, they go out on their first mission. Nugget and Sammy, who are the same person, get left behind at the thing because he's like 5 years old at this point. So they're like, he's too young even for us, so we're going to leave him back there until he gets old enough. So he's just at the base at this point. And Cassie is thinking, okay, I got to go get my brother. So she makes a deal with this silencer whose name is Evan Walker, she develops a liking for whatever. So she makes a deal with him and is like, okay, we're going to go get my brother back. So they start making their way to go do that. And we'll get back to them. And meanwhile, Squad 53, which is, Zombie and Ringer and all of them, go out on their first deployment because they have been trained to go fight the infecteds, the Teds, and they know that all their squad mates are going Dorothy, which is going crazy and saying, oh no, they're all the people training us, they're the aliens and whatever. They're like, oh yeah, those people are crazy. We're going to go fight the Teds and we're going to go win the war, Would you like to know more? Whatever, that kind of stuff, I'm doing my part, whatever. I just made 30 Starship Troopers references in 5 seconds, but whatever. Anyways, so they go out and they realize, wait a minute, these people are just people. Maybe we're the aliens. And then they do what they would call going Dorothy. And by this point, by the way, Flintstone and Tank have already gone crazy and died. So I forgot to mention that because that happens very early in the book. And so just bringing that up, they both die. They go crazy and they go Dorothy, and then they get killed. So in the training. So then all the remaining 5 go out and they're like, okay, we're gonna go kill some Teds. And they realize, wait a minute, we're the aliens. We're the ones killing everyone because the children are the 5th wave, and that's the whole reveal of the book. Dun dun dun. So they go out and they're like, uh-oh. So they come up with a story in order to get back, because they do have to get back because they want to get Nugget out. They want to get Sammy out. So what they do is they say, okay, Ringer is going to shoot Zombie, and he's gonna say, okay, they all went Dorothy, I'm the only one who made it back. He's gonna get back and cause havoc and get him out of there. So they do that, and then so their whole plan's coming together. So he's flying back while Evan and Cassie are going there. Their plans are happening at the same time, so they both break into the thing, at the same time, the encampment, And they both reach Sam / Nugget at the same time, and we're like, we're getting you out of here. No, we're getting you out of here. Whatever. Well, Cassie reaches him, and Ben reaches him at the same time. Because Evan is off at the bomb room, setting off all the bombs. So they get Sam, and then they're like, okay, we're getting you out of here. And then as they're running, all the bombs start going off. And then they all get picked up by the rest of Squad 53 in a car. So now they're all together, just driving away. And Evan manages to escape in an escape pod, and it's left on a cliffhanger for the next book. I'm not going to explain the rest of the next book, but I am going to explain the ending of the series, because I feel like that's important. And I understand that this isn't really part of the book battle, whatever, but I'm going to do it anyway, because this is my podcast, and I do what I want to. So, The Last Star, the third book of the Fifth Wave series, ends with Cassie. So, there's a whole thing in the first book where it's called the Wonderland Machine, where any recruit who is put into the ranks of the Fifth Wave is their mind is mapped on the Wonderland Machine. It basically records all their memories and lets Commander Vosh and all of them, which by the way are the aliens. I'm not sure if I actually mentioned that, but yeah, they are the aliens. It lets them look into your memories. But as a side effect of that, they have a copy of every single person in the base's mind on this machine. So what Cassie does is she downloads the entire collective consciousness of the entire base into her mind, basically turning her into God. Pretty fun. And then she launches herself up on one of the escape pods up to the alien ship with a little bomb in her cheek. And then, because there was this whole bit in the second book where they made child bombs. And then she goes up and blows up the mothership. And it's really cool. And it was crazy profound. Because of one line. Because at the beginning of the book, there's this little plot point that was mentioned where Cassie's father, well, she was a small child, would grab her and throw her up and catch her. And he would say, like, you are the girl that can fly, or whatever. And it seems really insignificant in that moment, because it's like, oh, it's just building their relationship. And then, in the end, it's like, the girl who saved humanity, Cassie Sullivan, the girl who could fly. And then the book ends with her blowing up the thing, and it's beautiful. And I cried on the school bus. Yeah, it's an S tier for the whole series. So, yeah, going over all of these books and doing this, I really enjoyed all these books. I understand that I did put Words on Bathroom Walls in D tier, but that doesn't mean it was a bad book. Just comparatively to the other ones, it wasn't as good as the Fifth Wave or any of them. So, overall, I enjoyed doing this, I will say. It was an enjoyable experience for me. It gave me an excuse to read. But I would say that if you were someone who's never read any of these books, don't watch this. I just spoiled all of them. But, they're very good books, and I really enjoyed all of them. But, some were better than others, which is what this tier list shows. So, that is me in the Book Nook, signing out.